Alright guys, so the tractor has some rust. It's not too bad, but there is some stuff I want to get on top of. And one of the first things I'm going to do is work on the bucket. Now a lot of people say, hey, this is a high use item, you know, it's going to get torn up, it's going to get chewed on, it's going to rust. Yes, that is true. However, I wanted to take this opportunity to practice some of the stripping and repainting techniques before I do it on the actual unit. This unit has kind of really on the top here where I think it's not going to see a lot of action. I really want to focus on stripping the rust and the old paint off, touching that up and seeing how well I can get. I'm going to try an organic chemical stripper that's biodegradable, as well as I'm also going to pair that with an angle grinder, a 3M Scotch-Brite pad, specifically for stripping. I'll put the links for that if I like them in the below and show you what I used. But what I really want to do is get this paint off, get the rust stripped off as much as possible, and then I'm going to use a rust converter. And then just for fun, we found a spray-on truck bed liner that's supposed to be really resilient, really tough. And we're going to just try that on this. And since it's the bucket, doesn't matter if it's good, bad, whatever. This will all be an experiment to see how things go so I can practice that on the actual Caterpillar. So here we go. We're going to start first with the organic chemical stripper and work our way from there. So it's a really good idea to get on top of rust. This unit came from back east where, you know, there's salt on the road, there's snow. We don't have that here, so things are going to live a lot longer, as well as, you know, this is the one day that it actually rains in California that's happening today. But it's really a good idea to try to get on rust as soon as you can, really get on top of it. Otherwise, you know, you can take something that's very nice and make it really terrible very quickly. So if you get on top of it as soon as you see it, you know, or very quickly thereafter, you'll be much happier. The item will last a lot longer, as well as it's going to look better. And I kind of want it to look nice, so. Okay, so let's talk about what we just did. I first tried using the grinder with the abrasive disc, and I think we were using it wrong, or the abrasive disc was really cheap because it immediately just about shattered and went everywhere, so that didn't work very well. So then what we did is we applied the organic stripping compound, and what I ended up doing is the areas that were really bubbled, I kind of went over with a scraper and tried to just get those off. That way I could get the compound underneath those areas so I didn't have to fight working on those big chunks. So kind of scrape those bigger stuff off and kind of rework the surface with the compound. We'll see how well that works. So we're going to let this sit. It says let it sit up to 24 hours. We'll keep checking on it every hour or so and see how it's doing. And then when we think it's good enough, we'll scrape it all off. Okay, so that took a lot longer than I had hoped. It took about 4 or 5 hours. So let's talk about what worked and what didn't work. First, I tried an abrasive disc. They look kind of spongy, and that almost disintegrated immediately. Maybe it's because I had some sharp corners or something, but that kind of didn't work out so well. Next, we found that worked really well is a wire brush. This worked extremely well for loosening up and getting rid of the rust. Another thing that would have been great is if I would have had a face shield, so I'm going to pick one of those up. Also, I had to chisel out some of the harder rust spots. It was almost like it was leftover slag from stick welding, which could have been possible when it was first put together. Or it was just a lot of buildup of rust. There was big chunks on there that look like welds, but when you'd actually hit them with a chisel, they would pop right off. And they had some pitting underneath of it. We cleaned it all off. You saw we put a chemical treatment on it for about 14 hours before scraping that off. First I started grinding on top of it, but it was putting a lot of smoke out. Or what we ended up doing is we ended up scraping as much as we could off with a couple of wide blades that help reduce the vapor from that. Once again, wear a mask when you do this. I should have had a face shield. I did have glasses on though. And then after everything was all stripped, there was a couple smaller spots that we had to get in there with smaller wire brushes. And there's just a couple parts that are really hard to get to that are behind metal, and there's not too much we can do about that. Just do the best you can, and it's the bucket, so best effort on this one. Anyhow, it looks like everything is pretty good. I ended up taking off the nameplate that was on here because when we treated it, ended up wiping the logos off and just like the serial numbers remain. So I ended up grinding the pins off, and because there was rust underneath of it, so I'd rather get that off. I don't know that I really care about the bucket serial number. If I really want, maybe I'll laser engrave something and add that back later. But for now, I've got a really good base, and then after we finished all that, we cleaned up all of our mess, and then we, according to the directions for the rust inhibitor, we washed it with dish soap, cleaned it and dried it, and then I've been letting it kind of warm up in my garage with a heater. So now we're ready to put the rust inhibitor on. Okay, so the rust reformer has been put on here, and now we are going to apply a product which I've never tried before, but it seemed like a good option at the time, and it is spray truck bed liner. It was rated very high for abrasion and rust resistance and scuffing, so I thought that might be a good product to try for this, and if it's terrible, oh well. So we're going to give that a shot, and here we go. Okay, so a few quick lessons learned of this whole project. Number one, that abrasive wheel didn't work real well on this. We went to a wire brush. The first coating that we did was the rust converter, which worked pretty well. It looked really good after that. The next thing is we used this Rust-Oleum truck and bed liner, and this was kind of a mixed bag. I like the look and I like the way that it turned out, and it feels like it's going to be pretty good. However, it was spotty coming out of the can, and it plugged the heads real quick, and it was just a mess. I had to keep constantly shaking it, and I'd only get about 50% like aerosol and 50% spray. I don't know if there was a bad batch, but immediately plugged up like 3 or 4 different nozzles that I tried. I tried another can too and had the same luck. So I don't know what I was doing wrong. If it's not, shouldn't be temperature-wise or in the 70s today. Vigorously shook it, had to keep shaking. It really hurt my hand just trying to spray it and shaking, so probably need to get one of those spray adapter things. I thought I had one, but I didn't. So make sure you have some mineral spirits around to kind of clean the tips. They really like to, and I get it, there's abrasive material in there. As far as the actual look, I think it turned out pretty good. It hides a lot of the, it kind of blends in all the paint. I wouldn't say it completely hides it, but it blends a lot of stuff very well. And it turned out looking really good. I really like the look of it, and now it's protected. At least the major area back here where all the hookups happen look like it's really well protected. And I'll probably, maybe if I get to it, spray the inside with the converter. I'd like to maybe scrape off, but I mean that's going to see all the dirt. I really just wanted to get the corners, all the welds and everything that make this bucket protected. So if I go back in time and talk to Past Bob, I would tell Past Bob, first, get a face shield. Second, maybe get a little bit bigger wire brush for the grinder. All we could find at the little hardware store was a small one, and I just, for some reason, didn't go to Home Depot. Get some mineral spirits. I don't know, maybe a different paint. I don't know. I like the look of this, but it was just so tough. I'd also get one of those spray things to, the hand grip spray things. Maybe hire somebody to grind the rust off.
Your wife doesn't count?
No, that was kind of a miserable process. It's very rewarding now. It looks great and it's protected. And a lot of people say, well, just buy a new bucket, that would, but, I didn't want to spend the money on it. And I think trying to be green for the environment, not just throw stuff away when it's used up, trying to fix stuff and repair it, I think is important, even if it takes a little more elbow grease. So hopefully this will, I'll probably do another review of this maybe a year down the line, and we'll revisit, how this coating holds up. And hopefully it will hold up well, and we did a good job getting all the rust off. We had to be very aggressive there was a lot of chunks that were almost like weld slag that was on there that needed to be really, we either had to chisel them off or we had to get very aggressive with the wire grinder to get it off of there. But once it was out of there, you could see kind of the raw pitted metal. It cleaned up nice. When you get close to the weld, you can see that everything is close to as original condition as we can make it.